Hello everyone, welcome back to Dialogue, the dialogue on analog music reproduction. In this episode we're gonna take a look at distortion. Is it true that it can ruin completely our listening, recording experience? Or is it also true that maybe there are some positive effects in our listening experience? Let's take a look. Okay guys, I wanted to discuss a little bit about this topic because the common knowledge usually points out to this aspect as something negative, while instead who produces music, who fiddles around with its mixing, understanding the way music is done, recorded, and also who is an engineer behind our precious hi-fi gear, knows exactly that distortion can have a positive effect. That is why I have entitled this video with a question mark, audiophile distortion? Yes, distortion can be audiophile, can be enhancing our experience, music listening experience, can make everything better. A little bit, not too much. Well, usually we think about distortion, as I said, something that is somehow degrading the sound, which it is always true actually, because it is a modification of the original sound wave, regardless if it's positive or not. We can decide that afterwards, but that is distortion. In any case, that is the truth. We can't deny that. In any case, if we think about a digital distortion, we already gonna cringe a little bit, because in that case, the distortion is very perceptible, very precise, and very harsh. Instead, in non-linear types of distortion, as that in an analog environment, regardless the part, it's just gonna be better. It's gonna be more round, more supple, just more pleasing, euphonic. Something that is just pure pleasure for human ear. In fact, we're gonna go through a few of the main types of analog distortion, mainly two actually, because in the end, there isn't that much to say about this, but there are two paramount points, which are tubes and also tape, which both influence obviously our amplification, our sources, our reproduction in general, plus also, as we will see in the end, music production. In any case, let's go back to our vacuum tubes. A lot of people correct me. I say tubes. No, okay, it's tubes or valves, as they say in British Isles. Okay, so vacuum tubes. What is the take here? Well, first of all, it's important to underline how this type of amplification was, and in part still is, mainly carried along thanks to guitarists. People who play the guitar, because guitar amps are mainly tube-based. And that is a very, very long tradition. I would say, since, actually, probably the 40s, 50s, all the way up until now, everyone has its own guitar amp, and they fiddle around with it, which gives that distinctive sound, because obviously guitars, otherwise, if it's not an acoustic guitar, it doesn't produce any sound, so you need an amplifier. Hence, a tube amplifier does create that distortion, special kind of distortion that makes that sound tasty and fantastic. So that's already a huge part. Obviously, then there's also hi-fi with our amplifiers, but also phono preamps, but also, let's not forget, microphone. The microphone preamplifiers, but the microphone themselves, like the famous Neumann U67 or the Telefunken 251. I mean, these amazing pieces of equipment, which can reach $10,000, $12,000. I mean, they give a very distinctive type of sound imprint, sound signature that only this type of equipment can. Why? Because they introduce this type of distortion, and that is why it's so important to at least know a little bit. I am not a pro. I am not a technician. I did not study engineering. I have not a deep knowledge in this sense, but I do want to share these few concepts. Please feel free to fill in and add information here below in the comment section. Absolutely. I'm here to learn too as well. Okay, so apart from this, what is the main characteristic of tube amplification? Well, that the distortion is gradual, okay? In contrast with solid state, which instead is abrupt, is sudden, it's precise, because it is a more precise type of circuit. So it is true that we have this more sweet, they call it soft clipping in vacuum tube amplification, which is also known as override, that type of distortion of tubes. A lot of people don't think that is the case, okay? Because they say, and I must admit that they are right in some way. It's the overall circuit. It's the overall concept of a piece of equipment. It's not just transistors and tubes. No, it's the ensemble of parts. Nevertheless, we can say that tubes have this gradual type of clipping where we reach the higher part of the amplitude of the sound wave, which is not able to keep its normal shape. It clips. And at that point, we can have something which is so-called a more soft clip, or in solid state environments, a harsh, almost square clipping, where we're just missing the top part, very simply. And this is, as I said, it's done by the total of the different components, but also to the amount of feedback. So things can change in this sense. Nevertheless, this rule, let's say, does exist. I mean, that's why a vacuum tube system does have a more pleasant distortion. And what is this distortion? The distortion is harmonic distortion, the creation of new frequencies, and these new frequencies of different types. There is this distinction, I don't want to even mention them. Let's just say, though, in a normal environment with different tones, we have different types of harmonics which combine themselves, and that creates that pleasant sound and it's something typical of non-linear distortion systems. So this is something at the base of analog reproduction, of analog recording, of the whole analog chain. In contrast, as I said, with solid state. But there are different kinds of solutions, of techniques that can stretch and modify this in a solid state type of amplification, for example. So it's not that rigid, okay? The separation. In any case, we do have a gradual distortion, let's say, in tube amplification, which gives that special kind of taste, okay? Then the whole big huge part is also, as I said before, tape. Mainly tape saturation. What is that? Well, when you apply a specific amount of voltage, the cassette can transform that, the magnetic oxide can somehow record that only at a certain point. It's capable of dealing with it, in simple terms, only at a certain point. After that, it's clipping again. And we have, again, this soft kind of clipping because it's not harsh. And in fact, a lot of producers, artists, we could say musicians, search that, are after that a lot of times. They want that effect where we have that fat bass and those nice and rolled off highs. And that is why, again, it's just more it's not just a form of pleasure. It's just more easy for us to accept the sound wave when it's so nice and round and full on the bottom, but not too much, and nice and easy on the top. That is a distortion. Nonetheless, it's a distortion, but it's a positive distortion. Absolutely. The important is to know that you are introducing a distortion when you use this type of medium. Now, with tape, again, you can push it, you can really run it hot, and at that point, you're going to have this effect. But in general terms, when you use tape, you're going to have this effect. Try. I think it's fundamental to, if you can, even just normal cassette. You don't have to get a reel-to-reel recorder and things like that. Even just a cassette. Record a high-quality digital file, and you will see that if you're using a good quality cassette and a good quality tape, as well as a good quality source, I did a video actually on this, here's a link, you're gonna have a very, very special effect where people are claiming, I think it's true, but it's not only me, that it sounds better. Not because you're adding information, obviously. Actually, you're losing it. When you're recording, you're losing something along the way. No, because you're transforming, you're adding some distortion. Again, harmonic distortion, which it just makes it better. For our taste, for our ears, I would say, maybe not everyone, but 8 out of 10 would prefer, even in a blind test, something coming from tape. If it's done correctly with high quality components, okay? Not lo-fi crap. Obviously, that's also another side of it, which is very cool, where you can experiment, but we're not talking about that. So all these elements, along also with transformer-based circuits inside analog gear, do give that warmth. And that warmth, that typical analog warmth, which a lot of people say it's bullshit, well, you could just translate it with harmonic distortion. You're adding some frequencies that somehow change the overall sound wave, and it makes it better for our ears. So almost as a confirmation of this, if you check around, you will see that among the top plugins, the top effects used today in music production throughout the world are analog effects, analog distortions, tape saturation, tube warmth, or whatever they call it with different types of names. But what they're trying to do is add this harmonic distortion, this soft clipping, sometimes pushing it as much as you can to obtain even other types of effects. Or even sometimes you want harsh type of clipping for other effects, even other types of effects. Okay, but in any case, there is this search. Very few are looking for a digital type of filtering of plugins, of coldness or precision that digital files, digital music has. But unfortunately, even distortion become precise with digital. And that is probably the problem there. The downside, though, of these plugins is that you aim at a certain part of the spectrum, a certain part of your recording, at a certain track. While this analog warmth, it's something that comes out through a whole chain, through a whole analog chain. Recording, processing, and playback. So, in my opinion, very rarely you do have a strong and actually a real, something believable that really sounds analog in a digital file, digital type of music, a digital type of reproduction, unfortunately. So in the end, why this is important, why this is relevant, it's not something to defend analog, no. It's just to say that the imperfections inherited, naturally present in analog media, in analog music, create a further engagement, a further pleasure that in most cases digital media, digital music does not have. And that is why so many people enjoy that. Okay? So don't jump always to the conclusions of measurements, of specs, comparisons in that sense, because it doesn't make that much sense. if you have a high quality analog source with a proper gear like we're trying to show you in this channel, you're gonna have a special experience, which in most cases it does gonna feel different from a digital one, and although imperfect, is just gonna move you more. In most cases, not always, it's just gonna move your soul, your passion, your enthusiasm. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave your comments. I'm very interested, and remember, music is born analog.
Well guys, if you're enjoying my videos and you're enjoying my channel, please consider to subscribe by clicking the black and white logo here below. Also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode and you will become a true member of the analog community.